Everybody, welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jared Berenstein, and I am here to answer all of your questions about politics, regardless of if they are complicated or simple, if they are conservative questions or democratic questions. Any question is fair game here on the live stream. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. It can feel like trying to learn a new language, and so I like to make myself available here to people to answer their questions about politics, and they don't have to fear getting judged or debated or roasted or anything of that nature. Yeah, it can be really difficult because people are very sensitive about politics. Communities can be very sensitive about politics, and so maybe you don't have people in your area that you feel comfortable asking these questions to. Maybe you're worried that people will judge you for being uninformed. Maybe you're worried that your question makes you sound like you're more conservative than you are. Maybe you're worried that your question makes you sound like some sort of libtard cuck. And, you can ask your questions here, though, because there's no judgments here. It doesn't matter if your question is simple or makes you sound like a Republican or a Democrat or what. There's no judgments here. There's no roasting. There's no debating. This is not one of those shows where I bring people up just to yell at them and tell them about how terrible their political opinions are, and then I own them, and then I clip it and put it on my channel. This is not that show. This is a show for good faith engagement in politics, discussions about what actually is going on in our government, discussions about where you can find reliable sources and what are the propaganda sources and whatnot. How do we fix things? How do we get involved? What's the best way to get engaged? User a bunch of numbers says, "You have great hair." Thank you very much. That's a very sweet thing to say. It's not a question about politics, but I'll take it. So, yeah, if you have any questions about politics, just put them in the chat and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know that it can be like trying to learn a new language because there's all these different three-letter agencies and there's these words for these procedures that maybe you don't know what it means. Maybe you don't know what a continuing resolution is or a filibuster or reconciliation or anything like that. Maybe you don't know who these people are. Maybe you don't know who Patel is or Noam or Hegseth. Maybe you're scared about asking people in your town questions about politics because you're worried that they'll think that you're some sort of libtard cuck, or you're worried that your friends in the blue states will think that you're some sort of MAGA fascist or something. Well, there's no judgments here. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care if you didn't vote. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. I am B.I. Cart says, "Do you support Palestine?" I support the citizens of every country. RTP's falsetto voice says, "Ozzy really is dead this time." I don't know if that's... Oh, did he die? Oh, that's a bummer. I just had Rena confirm that. Thank you for being here, Rena. But yeah, that is pretty sad. Vincent says, "Can you educate me on some of the parties outside of left and right? I don't know where to start." Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what you mean parties outside of left and right. Like there's the Green Party, the Working Families Party, the Libertarian Party. But do you want me to tell you like what is the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, Vincent? I appreciate you being here. Thanks for the question. Lily Spot says, "What's your number one source for current political news?" I don't really have one specific spot. I like to use news aggregators like Ground News or the Reddit news feed. I listen to a lot of podcasts from Crooked Media and stuff like that. Yeah, it's important to just have like a nice variety of sources so that you can what do you call it? So that you can avoid any kind of bias. Jack Rafferty says, "Are you a Trump supporter?" No, I'm not. Elmer says, "What do you think of Zoran Mamdani?" I like him a lot, and I am worried that people are not aware that the billionaire class is going to continue coming after him, even if he wins in November. They're still gonna come after him. So y'all just got to be prepared for that. You got to be prepared for people with a lot of money and power doing a lot to try to either make it so that he loses in November, or try to torpedo his agenda so they can all write think pieces about the Zoran Mamdani not getting things done and democratic socialists being all talk. I am B.I. Cart says, "Cop out answer. Do you think Israel is committing a genocide?" I am not an expert in what is or is not a genocide, but the ICC and the UN have all said that it's not a genocide, that it is war crimes. And war crimes is enough. Like, we should stop supporting Israel. We should stop sending money and weapons to Netanyahu because they're guilty of war crimes, and that is enough. You know. Let's see here. Vincent says, yeah, that would be great. Sorry for the confusion. Yeah, no, that's totally fine, man. I can give you some broad strokes, but the differences between the parties are so vast that there's definitely going to be things that are, it's not going to be a, 100% conclusive summary that I give you. But I'll swing back to that, Vincent. Let me catch up on these questions. Jack Rafferty says, who do you think the two candidates will be in 2028? So until Donald Trump dies, he will be the Republicans' nominee. Like, there's no question about it. He's going to try to die in office. Their term limits mean nothing to this guy. The law means nothing to him. Now, as far as who the Democrat is going to be, I always punt on this question because I'm not trying to wish cast for 28. What I'm trying to do is get people focused on 2026. We got midterm elections coming up next year, and it is vital that everybody get out and vote in those elections. Vodacious says, I mean, to be fair, half the people in the country don't really know what's going on. It might be more than that, Bodacious. Dan Blackwood says there's a United States Pirate Party. Seriously, yes, and yes, it's those kinds of pirates. Bryce B says, who'd you vote for? Democrats up and down the ballot. Mello says, do you think Texas will actually change their congressional map? Probably. You know, Republicans are relentless and insidious in their attempts to steal elections and cheat their way into victory. So let's see here. Who was my guy I was asking? Vincent. All right. So, Vincent, the general breakdown of the political parties is this. The Republican Party believes in limited government, but only in certain areas. Like, they want to cut regulations for giant corporations. They want to cut taxes for the billionaire class. They want to make sure that you can buy any kind of gun that you like. But they are very strict about certain things. Like, they do not like it when classrooms have books in them that feature gay characters. They do not think that a woman should have a right to choose to get an abortion. They do not believe that unions should have the right to organize and strike. They believe in trickle-down economics, meaning let's give the rich people as much money as they want, and then maybe it'll all trickle down to the rest of us. They believe that any regulation of businesses is an affront to the idea of free market capitalism. They believe that free markets will be able to solve everything. So they believe that health insurance, private health insurance like we have in America, is the system, is the good system, because the private industry is able to, the invisible hand of the market will solve all of the issues that we have in this country. The Democratic Party, by contrast, is a little bit more believing in the value of good government, meaning it is better to regulate businesses so that they are not, poisoning your water and air with the chemical runoff from their factories. It is better to have some regulations for guns because we have so much gun violence. Like, why don't we just keep guns out of the hands of certain people? It is better to listen to scientists who are telling us that climate change is a really big deal. And we know already that trickle-down economics doesn't work. So how about we do the opposite? How about we tax the rich and we reduce some of the financial burden on the lower class so that we can have a stronger economy built from the bottom up? And they believe in a woman's right to choose. They believe in supporting unions and workers, things like that. I hope that was educational for you, Vincent, if you are still here. Mello says Republicans want less immigrants. That also seems to be kind of accurate, though. Depending on which conservative you ask, they might give you a different answer. Some of them are just like straight up racist and are just like, I don't like it that they're brown. They're like, they say that they hate immigrants, but they'll find with white immigrants that come in from South Africa or Norway or Sweden or shit like that. And a lot of it is, political theater. Like, a lot of the Republican Party doesn't really care about fixing the problem of, illegal immigration. They just want to have it as an issue that they can use to win elections going forward. Michael Longbow says, is Trump a good president to you? He's not a good president to anybody. JJ says, what do you think about AOC's recent actions? You'll have to be more specific. Breck2603 says, don't trust everything you and her. I think you meant to say, don't trust everything you hear. And I agree, don't trust everything that you hear. Free the Trade says, what are your thoughts on incentivizing home sales by removing the capital gains tax on home sales? I do not believe that is the correct solution. Though I'm not going to die on that hill. That's not really my area of expertise. I believe that we are experiencing some capture of our stock of homes by private industry. venture capitalists are buying up houses en masse so they can turn us all into renters and decrease the stock. Trump's tariffs have caused a shortage in being able to build in this country. Regulatory capture in blue states where bad faith actors have used the mechanisms by which we try to make it so that things are built fairly and safely in order to stall projects that hurt them. Yeah, and just the fact that giant corporations are starving the middle class and the poor class and creating a generation of wage slaves, I think is much more an issue of people being able to afford homes. Free the Trade says yes, but that would increase home availability and decrease pricing of homes. I don't think that's that big of a deal. Like if you are bummed that your home is not as massively profitable when you try to sell it after occupying it for a little while, if you're not as profitable of a home flipper because of that, like I don't really care. Like homes should be homes. Homes can be investments, sure, but I mean mostly they should just be homes. People should be able to live places. TY says, what do you think of the One Big Beautiful Bill? It's a disaster. It's going to hurt a lot of people. Unless you are a rich person or a fossil fuel person, then you're going to get fucked by the Big Beautiful Bill. Nova John says, hello, how are you? I'm fine. How are you, Nova? IEG Malsh says, nothing funny about Biden administrative. I'm not really sure what point you're trying to make. Also, if you have different political opinions than me, and you don't want to get booted out for like just spreading misinformation propaganda, ask a question. I don't care who you voted for so long as you ask a question. JJ says, what do you think about AOC's recent actions? Not sure if you already answered this. I don't know what actions you're referring to. TY says, can you elaborate? Sure. The Big Beautiful Bill is a massive transfer of wealth from the bottom, from the 99% to the rich. 17 million people are going to lose access to health care. Hospitals are going to shut down in rural counties for lack of funding. There's not going to be as many drug treatment centers. Doctors and scientists are already fleeing the country. That's only going to increase. It is going to increase red tape for anybody trying to survive with any kind of government assistance. So if you have Medicare or Medicaid or welfare or SNAP benefits, they're going to add a bunch of paperwork and bullshit work requirements so that they can kick you off of that. Healthcare prices are going to go up. They're removing subsidies for renewable energy and adding taxes to renewables and canceling renewable contracts. So that's going to cost a lot of jobs and it's going to increase everybody's energy costs. Yeah, it's going to be a fucking nightmare. Mello says, at least the funding cut will hit Trump voters hard. Mello, I understand like the schadenfreude of that, where you're like, these are the people that voted for this, and so hopefully they are experiencing some discomfort from it. But I also don't really enjoy relishing in the pain of other people in the 99%. Like we're all the working class, and we just need to, organize and coalesce around fighting against the billionaire class. So I'm not going to throw stones at other voters. Let's see here. Nova John says, do you stream daily? I do, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Nova John says, what's your favorite game? I don't really have a favorite game. I have games that I've liked a lot in the past. I liked the Ico games, Shadow of the Colossus, Ico, those are pretty dope. Mac Daddy Shrimp 69, I feel like I've seen you here before. What are your thoughts on Pam Bondi talking to Ghislaine Maxwell? No idea how to actually pronounce her first name. I was calling her Ghislaine for a while, but I don't know if that's accurate. So yeah, I guess my concern is that the Trump administration is extremely untrustworthy. So I'm worried that they're going to try to barter with her to tailor her testimony to throw only Democrats under the bus, because I don't really give a shit if there are Democrats who fucked around with Epstein and are guilty of being PDF files. If they're fucking guilty, like throw them in jail, like get them out of public office. Like I don't have any loyalty to them just because they're Democrats. Like fucking throw them under the bus. But I will be fucking furious if there are Republicans like Donald Trump who are implicated in those documents, and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel just fucking work overtime to throw away all of that evidence and hide it and alter it in a way that only implicates people who are either Democratic politicians or billionaires who support the Democratic Party. So I'm worried about that. Of course, because they're not above it. Like the Trump administration is not above doing shit like that. JJ says, what do you think about a wealth tax? I'm for it. Mac Daddy Shrimp says, here a decent amount, like hearing your answers on political questions, challenge my thinking. Oh, I'm glad to see you again, Mac Daddy Shrimp. You are welcome here. Free the Trade says, when there are more options, the prices must come down to meet demand. Yeah, I mean, I think that home prices are part of the problem. So yeah, let's do some work to actually lower those prices. Hano says, why ask someone biased about their opinion? I'm not biased, Hano. Let's see here. C.I. Walton says energy is free. It's the billionaire class who get hit with free energy. Don't know what that means, C.I. Pat says quick break from politics. Ozzy Osbourne just died. Yes, we did hear about that. That is a bummer. All right, JJ. I was referring to AOC voting against pulling funding for ISR Iron Dome system. You know, I generally come down on the side that we should not be continuing to send money and weapons to Israel because the Netanyahu government is guilty of war crimes. And we already have a law in the books that says that we're not allowed to do that. Now, some people will parse that by saying, like, well, we can send the money for defensive weapons, right? Like we should help them to defend themselves, right? And you know, that's not my expert of expertise. Like, can they protect themselves without Americans' help? I don't know, maybe. I think so. You know, like they can afford, universal health care and we can't. So, maybe they have enough money to, pay for their own Iron Dome shit. So yeah, I'm not really sure. I would need to read a little bit more into that. But again, I generally come down on the side of Israel has been a terrible um, ally to America. They have been a terrible neighbor to their other countries, and the Netanyahu government does not deserve any more support from America. So, I'm not against it. Free the Trade says, would cheaper housing and more options help? I think so. Rick Brunetti says, I'm sure they already fixed the Epstein report. I mean, potentially, but why are they fighting so hard to hold on to that information if they have successfully doctored it already? La Media Rana says, why can't people see things from all sides like I can? La Media Rana, um, I believe that people that believe that there's value on both sides have an inaccurate view of the two political parties because I'm pretty up on this stuff. I follow politics pretty intently, and there's a massive difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party is like way worse. Like I don't really see any value in their platform, their actions, their politicians, that sort of thing. So when you say why can't people see things from both sides, my question back to you is why do you believe that both sides have something valuable to offer when the Republican Party is guilty of these massive crimes and the Democrats' worst crime is, just like not being as effective at winning elections, basically, That's a little oversimplified. Like the Democratic Party has done bad things, but just compared to what the Republican Party has done, it's like not even close. It's not a close game. All right, but La Media Rana, please respond if you are still here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Nova John, yeah, I answered your question. I don't really have a favorite game. There's a bunch of games that I've liked, like I like, you know what my favorite game is? XCOM. I love the XCOM games. Scotty says, what can we do about the Republicans? Well, we need to do the work to make sure that they lose all of their upcoming elections, Scotty. That is the only way the Republican Party is going to change, is if we take political power away from them by electing Democrats instead. There's all these people that talk about we have to punish the Democratic Party for not doing this or for doing that or whatever, but you fail to recognize when you make that point that in doing that, you are rewarding the Republican Party for doing worse things than the Democrats are doing. And so we need to flip that script. We need to unelect every Republican from president to dog catcher so that they recognize that we're not going to fucking put up with this shit anymore. Drew says, I won't vote for Democrat now that I've done it a little bit of research and noticed or learned that Drew said things that don't really make any sense. Democrat wrote a book on a 3-step process to turn us into a communist country. So ever vote for Drew? I don't believe you, Drew. I don't believe that you did a bunch of research because you're not great at writing things. So I don't really trust your research skills. JJ says, who's your favorite candidate for 2028 elections? I always punt on that question, JJ. I'm trying to get people focused on the midterm elections and not just wish casting for 2028. AJ Morant says, we got to be cautious. We don't need another John Fetterman, Cory Booker, and Hakeem Jeffries. I'm with you on John Fetterman. He seems a little off the rails these days, but Cory Booker and Hakeem Jeffries are fine. I would much rather have progressives like Jasmine Crockett, Maxwell Frost, and AOC and shit. But having Hakeem Jeffries and Cory Booker in those seats is better than having Republicans in those seats by a long shot. A.A. Ron says, bro did a bunch of research and still thinks Democrats are communists. Yeah, accurate there. Drew says, and if we elected Kamala, we were on our way to heading into a communist country or banana republic. Yeah, Drew, you're not asking questions. You're just saying nonsense. So you're out of here. Congratulations. Caden says, I won't vote for a Democrat because I've seen what they have done to my home state of California. California is still a way better place to live than the majority of red states, Caden. So I'm not really sure what point you are trying to make there. Drew says, okay, so you're ignoring me because you don't think I am right. I'm 48 years old. I know a lot. You can't spell, man. I don't really... On my way says Obama committed treason. That is also inaccurate. Again, guys, I don't care if you have different political opinions than me, but if you don't ask a question, I'm going to boot you. I don't allow people just to spam the comments with right-wing propaganda. Rick Bernetti says, I think the Democrats need to promote their young talent and retire the old guard. I agree with that 1,000%, Rick, but caveat, a centrist gerontocracy Dem is still better than a Republican. Full stop. Ram says, Caden should live in Mississippi or Alabama for use and see how much worse it is. LOL. I agree with that. Michael Wakefield says, I like your show. I am very frustrated with the Trump administration. I am a blue dot in a red state. Hold on a second. Somebody earlier, I appreciate your comment, Michael, but somebody earlier was just like, Scotty said, vote, that's all. No, Scotty, that is not. But that is a very important part of the step. Are you still here? Because I would love to tell you more about how you can help besides just voting. XBlaze216 says, why can't any candidate just meet every single one of my values and agree with me on everything I do? Yeah, XBlaze, I completely agree with you, man. How come politicians aren't tailored to my exact specifications? It is the height of ego to think that every politician needs to meet your values 1,000%, or you're just not going to vote, or you're just going to let the worst candidates win through your inaction or some shit. Brandon Wallace says, should we move as far as Mamdani as I want, or will it be too much for the party? Brandon, there's a difference between what I think is good and what might actually be good, because I see so much value in the Mamdani, AOC, Bernie Sanders side of the Democratic Party, to the point where I'm like, I think this message can win, even in deep red states. But there are very intelligent pollsters out there who will tell you that the under the radar progressives have exactly as much of a losing streak as as some of the centrists in the party as well. So I don't know. I would love to believe that America is secretly as progressive as I want them to be. I would love to believe that if the Democratic Party was all Mamdani's and AOC's, that America would not believe the right-wing propaganda that would come out about them, talking about how they're socialists and communists and how they're going to turn your kids gay and shit like that. But I don't know. I don't know about that. Right-wing propaganda is strong and extremely well-funded and insidious and endemic. And so, yeah, it's a game of inches. And I don't really think that we can take our foot off the gas, regardless of even if the Democratic Party was just all of our favorite politicians that everybody loved, the billionaire class would still be working their fucking asses off to discredit them and get them to lose elections. And so we would still need to do the work. There is no perfect messaging strategy that beats billionaire funding 100% of the time. And it is just us doing the work that beats the billionaire class. Ches says, where are good fascists to vote for? I don't think it's good to vote for any fascist. XBlaze says, holding out for a perfect politician is like holding out for the ideal man or woman. It's pointless. I like the analogy, XBlaze, of waiting for a bus that goes directly from your house to directly where you want to go. You kind of have to walk a couple of blocks regardless. Caden says it's not a spoiled vote if everyone does it. Are you talking about third parties, Caden? Because that's the problem, is that not everybody does it. Michael Wakefield says Biden did a lot of good things for the country. Disappointed in his pardoning of Hunter. Thoughts? I do not think that presidents should be able to pardon people. It seems like a power that has been abused by both sides. But I will say this: like, I am not going to get mad at Biden's pardons until I am done being mad at the over 1,000 worst pardons that Donald Trump did. Donald Trump was selling pardons for $2 million a pop. He currently still is. He has pardoned people that owe the American people money. Like, he's canceled settlements that these massive corporations and rich people have had to pay back to their customers. And so he literally just took money out of the hands of the 99% and gave it to fucking rich people. He has pardoned a cop killer. He has pardoned people that have beat cops within an inch of their lives. He has pardoned drug dealers. He has pardoned people who then tried to use those pardons to get off from child pornography charges as well. There is no limit to how mad I am at the Trump pardons. I am not going to get mad at a pardon that is less egregious and terrible until I am done with that. Caden says, yeah, third parties are a viable solution. They're not, though, Caden. You know, I appreciate you being here, but they're just not. They're not doing the work. They're not building up the kind of grassroots local support that would make them viable on the national stage. And there's so much evidence of this that if you don't see it, I'm wondering if you're not seeing it on purpose. Xblaze says, I love that bus analogy, but don't think the people who need to know it what a bus is. Yeah, potentially. Dan Blackbird says, I don't give a shit about Biden's pardons. There, I said it. Yeah, I'm with you, buddy. Osher says, third parties are absolutely not a viable solution in our current voting system. Agree with Osher. LaRue says, how is it the most intelligent orange man, thinks that we don't need education? The reason why is because the less education that you receive, the more susceptible you are to conspiracy theories, and coincidentally or not, the more likely that you are to vote Republican. I do not believe that not getting education means that you are dumb or gullible, but there is a difference between how people with an education vote and how people without an education vote. And I think that you can make certain, connections based on that data. Like, maybe you get something when you get an education that teaches you how to recognize a snake oil salesman, for example. Caden says, you got 90 some people here. You could argue why 90 people should vote third party. I think you need to clean that up, Caden. Ron says, if you want a third party to be viable, then vote yes when ranked choice comes up in your ballots. That is an excellent point, Ron, and I will just point this out. There are a lot of electoral reforms that people have been crying and screaming about: ranked choice voting, opening up the politic to other parties besides Democrats and Republicans. But there's only one party that is actively working for that world, and it's the Democratic Party. The Republicans are trying to make ranked choice voting illegal. The Republicans do more to solidify one party rule than Democrats could ever hope to fucking achieve. And so if you want other options, the best thing you can do is elect Democrats. Like, I know you hate that, everybody. Like, I get it. Like, I get where the hate of the Democratic Party comes from. It just seems so counterproductive to me to just stamp your feet and just be like, I don't want to vote for Democrats, though. It's just like, but they'll help. It'll be better if you do, AG93 says, does the average Democrat think they would be considered left wing anywhere else in the world? Yeah, a lot of people have made this observation, AG, that left wing parties in other countries are more left wing and more progressive than our current left wing. And, there's probably a lot of factors that have caused that, but they're still the best option as far as like the two parties are concerned in this country. Duncan says, no, they won't. They're all corrupt. Saying things like that just gives cover to the most corrupt people, Duncan. So I would encourage you not to say things like that. Cameron Hodge says, thoughts on the allegations of Obama and Russia 2016? Should it be investigated? It is literally all fake. It is fake. It is all bullshit. People in the Trump administration signed off on that intelligence report back in the day. And so they are lying now. They are lying now that there is something there. AA Ron says, I have zero problems with Democrats in this current climate. The worst D is better than the best R. I completely agree with that. Truth Matters says, I don't hate that voting for Dems is just better for the country. Completely agree. X-Blaze says, is it Democrats' job to win votes or citizens' job to give Democrats their votes? That is a really good question, X-Blaze. And here's the thing that I would say. I think it's, God, it is really difficult to talk. Yeah, I don't know. So here's what I would say about that. I think it is clear, based on the data, that the Democratic Party would help more people in this country than the Republican Party, and that the Republican Party would hurt more people than the Democratic Party. That being said, the electoral system in this country has also, because of being whittled away by the billionaire class and an extremely corrupt right-wing Supreme Court, the electoral system has been weighted in favor of Republicans winning elections. So the Electoral College, gerrymandering, the Senate map, Citizens United, right-wing propaganda channels, Fox News, Breitbart, social media algorithms, everything gives a massive advantage to the Republican Party. So is it the Democrats' job to convince people to vote for them? Yes. But is it also in all of our best interests to win elections for the Democrats just so that we can have better fucking lives and we don't have to worry about our air being safe to breathe and our water being safe to drink and our medications being safe to take and our food being safe to eat and, the fucking billionaire class not fucking, bulldozing our fucking houses so they can turn them into golf courses, for themselves, it's just in my best interests to elect Democrats because they are going to create a better country. Is it my job to elect Democrats? No. But I just think that it would be better for everybody, and that's why I'm doing it. It's better for people in blue states and red states that Democrats get elected because then all of our wages go up and our healthcare outcomes are better and our education is better. It's just better. So yeah, and there's another part of me that believes that we shouldn't care about how good at getting elected Democrats are, that we should just care about them doing the job of governing. I know that is, like fucking utopia thinking. Like, obviously, the world that we're living in right now, like, part of a Democrat's job is being electable and doing social media and having a communication strategy and stuff like that. But yeah, in an ideal world, we would just be judging them by the job that they do in office. All right. Flora says, even if you don't like Democrats, it's easier and better to organize for greater change under them. Completely agree with that. Flora. Brandon Wallace says, do you think the New Jersey district judge appointed by Trump not being allowed by a judge is over? I'm actually not familiar with that story there, Brandon Wallace. X-Blaze says, Democrats are the underdogs, so they deserve votes because they aren't hateful right-wing racists. Right-wing fascists. Democrats are the underdog, so they deserve votes because you're kind of circling around the point there, X-Blaze. It almost kind of sounds like you're being snarky, like you're kind of being sarcastic. I'm not really sure what your vibe is, X-Blaze. Keith Schultz says, do we have the goods on that phony Obama? No, that is a fake case. There's nothing real there. MD Rob says, I'm hearing from my Republican friends that Dems are too far left. I don't agree. Damage from Fox. Yeah, the thing about the Democratic Party is that they are judged way harsher than the Republican Party and very unfairly, in my opinion. Depending on who you ask, they are simultaneously too far to the left and too far to the right and doing too much and doing too little. They are Schrodinger's political party. They are all bad things at once somehow. And so I believe that this is partly inorganic, where all of our information channels are captured by the billionaire class, so they are incentivized to create all of this negative spin around everything that Democrats do and say, and then water down the negative things that we could say about the Republican Party. And yeah, so I think it's important that we correct that narrative everywhere we go. The Democratic Party is better than most people give it credit for, and the Republican Party is worse than most people give it credit for. Let's see here. X-Blaze says, no, I'm not. I'm frustrated and facetious. All right. Well, then tell me how you actually feel, X-Blaze. Don't hide what you're saying in sarcasm because I'm having trouble parsing it. Let's see here. Rick Bernetti says, I didn't hear a lot said about Trump's job cuts affecting the deaths in the Texas floods, did they? Yes, they did, 100%. The Texas floods were worse because of the actions of the Republican Party. The floods were worse. The disaster response was worse. The cleanup is worse because of the Republican Party. Flores says it's a class war and the billionaires are winning on the propaganda front. That is 100% accurate. Mimi says Republicans do not have standards anymore. Goalposts for deception continually moved. That is also accurate. And Mimi, I would encourage you to have radical empathy for every voter. You can have as much vitriol and rage for elected Republican politicians, Republican talking heads like Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson, but voters that just got tricked, voters that have been living in an information bubble their entire lives, I don't think that we should be getting into fights with them or throwing pot shots at them. Breck says, don't trust everything you read in here. I agree with that. Xplay says, do you think a system where checks and balances aren't working can be fixed from within? Yes, Xplays, because before the Trump administration and the Republican goal in general has been to dismantle those checks and balances, it was working. You know, like it wasn't perfect. There were still a lot of issues, but a lot of those issues stem from changes that the Republican Party made to make government less efficient. So yeah, I'm not really sure where you're seeing the issue there, but let's talk about specifics. You know, like I would love to engage with you. You know, I'm happy that you're here. Hades over on Twitch says hi back. Phantom Trade says there wasn't enough emergency personnel and early warning systems, and why not? Because the Trump administration cut them. MCF says the left wing and right wing are attached to the same bird. It's the ruling class versus the citizenry. You're so close, MCF, but there is a big difference between the left wing and the right wing. The outcomes are different. The politicians are different. The platform is different. The funding is different. 75% of all billionaire donations go to the Republican Party. The Republican Party currently has more billionaires in the president's cabinet than any president in the history of America. And the Republican Party has a history of cutting taxes for the billionaire class, cutting taxes for their companies, for their massively profitable companies, and cutting regulations for their companies so that they can poison us with chemical runoffs from their factories and they won't have to pay any sort of fines or any shit like that. And they can afford one more fucking golden mega yacht, you know? Ruben says, who'd you vote for and why? Democrats have been down the ballot because they are better than the Republicans. And also because I like their platform. Truth Matters says, why aren't MAGA discussing Donald Trump getting rid of NPR and PBS? I think probably because they've been told by their right-wing propaganda that PBS and NPR are bad and that he did a good thing by getting rid of them. Truth Matters says, don't they care about free speech? Republican politicians and Republican talking heads and Republican Supreme Court justices don't care about free speech. They care about their speech. But if your speech and that is criticizing them is being censored or you're being thrown in jail for that, they don't give a shit. They're like, well, you shouldn't have said that shit. Xplay says, Jared, a fascist dictator is a true test of the system. Hasn't been tested like this before. I completely agree with that, Xblaze. The problem is that during the first Trump administration, he damaged our checks and balances to the point where now he is able to deliver kill shots. And, you know, it was a testament to our systems of checks and balances that he was not able to be as bad of a dictator, fascist, authoritarian piece of shit then that he is now. But we were not able to fix all of the checks and balances just in the 4 years of the Biden administration. All right, Breck 2603 says Republicans and Democrats only care about their speech. That is inaccurate. Breck 2603. Democrats believe that I disagree in what I think Voltaire said, which was, I disagree with everything that you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. Somebody fact check me on that. Was that Voltaire? I'm pretty sure it was Voltaire. Rick Brunetti says, are we even close to moving to a popular vote system? We are exactly as close, Rick, as efforts that we put into it. If we work to make that a vibe here in this country, if we spread that message, if we convince people to vote for politicians who will do that, and then we get those politicians elected, we could have it as early as 2026. You know, with a 67 seats in the Senate and a House majority, we could pass veto-proof legislation that Donald Trump could not do a fucking thing to stop. But will people do that amount of work to elect that number of Democrats? Probably not. You know, but that's what I'm doing on here is I'm trying to encourage people to do that work, you know. Truth Matters is definitely Voltaire. All right, I'm smart. Thank you, college education. Phil says, tell that to the Democratic voters that are gerrymandered in Texas, LOL. Yeah, I am not going to lie and say that gerrymandering does not make that that work a million times harder, but that does not make it impossible. There is no reason why we cannot do the work of going into red districts and getting those votes. Because it's not just that Texas is gerrymandered, it is also a voter suppressed state. So there are more non-voters in Texas than there are voters. Who are those people? Who can we convince them to vote for? How can we make it easier for them to vote? Do they need rides? Do they need money to pay for an ID? Like, is it a voter ID state? Do they need help waiting in line because they have closed down so many polling locations in Democratic areas? Like, there is work that can be done to fight against Republican chicanery in stealing and lying and cheating to win elections. Alrighty. Trish says everything is worse because of Republicans. They've been working to erode our rights for 4 decades. That is accurate, Trish. Brandon Wallace says Alina Habba replaced as interim U.S. attorney in New Jersey by a judge today. What do you think is next? I mean, that is terrifying. I think she was Trump's lawyer and she fucking sucks. I'm pretty sure I remember that being a thing. So, yeah. Jonathan says gerrymandering is used by both parties. That is accurate, Jonathan. But number one, Republicans benefit from gerrymandering way more than Democrats do. Democrats only do it to stay competitive against Republicans. And number two, Democrats tried to get rid of partisan gerrymandering. They tried to make it so that every state had to use independent districting commissions in order to redraw their lines. And guess which political party blocked it? I'll give you a hint. It is the exact same political party that is currently blocking the Epstein information from coming out of the DOJ. Jonathan says, it doesn't benefit me, so I don't like it, says Jonathan in quotation marks. Are you listening to the things that I say, Jonathan, or are you just here to prove that you are right? Let's see here. Phantom Trade says, Texas has been a red state for as long as I can remember. Yeah, but it's also a purple state. It is also a heavily gerrymandered and voter-suppressed state. Jonathan says they should be released. Well, fucking talk to the Republican Party, man. If you don't like gerrymandering, talk to the Republican Party, because the Democrats are doing the work to both release the Epstein shit and end gerrymandering, you know? So you can miss me with that both sides stuff. X-Blaze says, Jarrett, the design of the system was to eliminate and prevent kings. Do you think it is/has worked? So yes, it has. X-Blaze, the problem is that we need people to do it, you know? Like the thing that Trump has managed to do, and he's managed to do it because he's had the help of the billionaire class and the information sphere being weighted against the Democratic Party, is that he's been able to replace key people within the government to not do the checks and balances that they are constitutionally required to do. So Congress right now is in the control of the Republican Party. They're fucking sitting on their hands while Trump runs fucking ramshod over the emoluments clause. He's accepting, you know, billions of dollars in dark money donation from people who we will never fucking find out who they are, because it's all happening through his fucking wildly illegal cryptocurrency and his fucking shoe and perfume businesses and shit like that. It's not the problem of the system. It's the problem of the people who are working the levers in the system. Katrina, Berenstein sounds sus, almost rat-like. Rena, you were fucking sniped that block. Fucking headshots, Rena. Well done. And obviously, I'm speaking metaphorically here. I do not condone any kind of violence. ADD says, Mr. Jarrett, not a Berenstein bear. Did y'all Google Nord Stream 2? ADD. ADD, I did not. Sorry, I forgot about that. You didn't send me a message. You didn't email me. ADD, you didn't DM me, my guy. That's part of the equation, my man. Like, people say shit to me all the time on here, and they just disappear, and I never have to tell anybody the information again. You know, you need to prove to me that you're actually engaged by, you know, you're actually invested by sending me a message. Truth Matters says, why is Donald Trump trying to get rid of Act Blue? Because Act Blue raises money for progressives that fight against his agenda. All right, Mr. Zantastic says the Senate is a ridiculous model in this day and age. I completely agree with that. Trish 3000 says, oh my God, Trump administration is in talks to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, wants to threaten in person. I think that is 100% accurate, Trish. EDED says, nah, rather just be real. All right, man. Well, then I'm never going to be able to remember to do that if you don't fucking message me. All right. Excellent questions, everybody. Excellent engagement so far. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for all the questions and all the support. It is your support that makes it possible for me to continue doing this show, everybody. So I would say You know, I would say it's rough out there. You know, and so it takes a lot to maintain the kind of you know, energy and positivity to continue this work. And so I would encourage everybody to do what they can to hold on to that. Let's see here. X Play says Citizens United was the downturn of this country. I mean, I think it was definitely a massive wound. But the billionaire class has been at this for a long time. You know, like they've been doing shit since Nixon, since Reagan, since the two Bushes. You know, it is not, what do you call it? It is not just Citizens United. We weren't doing great before then, you know. Phil says, have you ever met David Pacman? No, I have not. Trish says, Reagan was a turning point in my opinion. You know, that is a totally valid opinion to have, Trish. I think it is it's a little more complicated than that. Have you read Dark Money, Trish, by Jane Mayer? Mr. Zantastic says, how do we try and counter the feedback loop we have between the executive and SCOTUS? Mr. Zantastic, that the solution to that is what I call the work. And it's just recruiting people to get more involved in politics, pulling people out of their propaganda rabbit holes, but also we have to put political pressure on elected representatives, pressure corporations and billionaires to fight on our side. You know, threaten them with removing our business, with boycotts, with strikes, and then voting. We just have to elect better people. Like that is the end. That is the full end game right there. Yeah, Trish, you're gonna be so fucking furious when you read Dark Money because I was where you were. I was like, oh my god, the billionaire class has been fucking us over forever. And then I read Dark Money and I was like, wow, it is 1,000 times worse than even I thought it was. Cole Blue says, yo, what's going on? Nothing much. What's going on with you? Joni Calder, good to see you again. Max will never see a courtroom. They'll make sure of that. Potentially, yeah, I don't know. If I got regulars on here, I just want to see, have y'all checked out the Discord? I have a thread posted with what the work is. So if you want to be involved in trying to help, like that's an excellent place to go. Like, let me know in the chat if you've been to the Discord, if you checked out the thread, if you know what I mean when I'm talking about the work, because you know, I talk about the work so much that I just, you know, I don't want to have to repeat what it is over and over again. So I just put it on the thread, you know. Mr. Zantastic says I should check it out. Thank you, Mr. Zantastic. I appreciate that. All right, ADD, I say with a fucking massive eye roll. Instead of needing a calculator or AI chat LGBT thingy or search bar result, I can converse with y'all on the topic right now to help fill in on stuff. You can search it as it happens. I'd not BS y'all though. Take, for example, Balltops 22 as operation names for search and all, not being mean, just saying I not know what info y'all need. ADD, I don't know who you are. You could be anybody. You could be a troll bot. You could be somebody who is working for a billionaire to spread misinformation. So I'm not going to take the things that you say with a grain of salt. But if you want to discuss things that I actually know about, I'm open to that if you want to engage on that. If you are telling me, Jared, there's some shit with the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that is illuminating, like you need to look into it, all right, send me a message about it, man, and I will 100% look into it. Let's see here. Arena says, chat LGBTQ, LOL, what? Yeah, Arena, that has raised my eyebrow as well. Let's see here. Trish says, bought Dark Money on Kindle. Now to actually read it is the challenge, ADH. You know, I listened to it on tape, Trish, and it's a quick read that way. You know, I ride my bike, listen to that shit, get pissed as hell. Party Soros, great to see you again. Says, kid, could you elaborate on the Obama campaign spying? Is that like Watergate or Epstein distraction? So I think what you're referring to is the Trump administration is currently, you know, threatening to indict Obama for something involving like Russiagate or something. If that's what you're referring to, I can expand on that, but it really is very simple. It is 100% bullshit. All the claims that they are making are lies. They are provable lies. There are people who are currently in the Trump administration who backed the original investigations. If there is any criticism to be made about the Obama administration handling the Russian misinformation collusion scandal with Trump, it's that he was not aggressive enough and did not communicate to the American people that Russia was trying to help get Trump elected and spreading massive amounts of misinformation over social media. So yeah, it's bullshit. It is a lie. It is fascist authoritarian shit of Trump going after his political enemies, of Trump, the executive, trying to wrest control of the Department of Justice for political purposes. It is lawless. It is unconstitutional. It is exactly the kind of lawfare bullshit that everybody said the Biden administration was doing to Trump, but was not actually doing to Trump. Yeah, it is. It's fascist nightmare schnazi shit. Let's see here. Party sources, just our government lying to us now. Yeah, 1000%. XC Money says, was Constitution written with the only intention to apply for white men? I don't believe that every founding father or every author of the Constitution had that ideal. I think some of them did. I think some of them were down with slavery. I think some of them were like, yeah, only landowning white men should be the ones that are able to vote. But not all of them. And more importantly, they wrote systems within the Constitution to be amended to be a more representative document. So was the original Constitution like that? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not really a historian in that way, or a constitutional law professor. But that is not its purpose now, today. Ella LHAMO says, I have been screaming from the rooftops that we are in the middle of a violent government takeover. Well, you are right, LHAMO, and protect your voice. Des Emperor said some shit in Russian, so, oh boy. Let's see here. Mr. Zantassi says, the beauty of our Constitution is our ability to amend it democratically, though. That is accurate. Trish says, and massive attempt at destruction not going to work. Epstein isn't going anywhere. Correct. XC Money, I already answered that one. Gabe says, are you pro-government or against the government? I am pro-good government, Gabe, and against bad government. Like, I am against this current government. Silver says, what's your opinion on abortion? I'm pro-choice, but even if you're pro-life, you should still vote for Democrats because the Republican Party is not really pro-life. They say that they're pro-life. They say that they're trying to stop abortions, but they're actually not doing that. If they were trying to stop abortions, they would actually do things that prevent unwanted pregnancies. They would support contraceptive programs. They would support family planning and sex education. They would pay people more money so that they could afford to have families, because that's a big reason why people get abortions, is because they can't afford to have kids. But the Republican Party is against all of those policies. So it doesn't seem like they want to stop abortions. It seems like they want to increase accidental pregnancies and pregnancies that people can't afford to have, and then just force those people to have that. Republican policies around abortion only make pregnancy more dangerous for women. That's the long and short of it. It's only the Democratic Party that's actually pro-life. Scrolling down to the bottom. Cuz 808, I am Mormon. Do you think I'm Christian? I don't really have an opinion about that, cuz I don't know if Mormons are part of the Christian umbrella. Justin says, I don't think you understand pro-life. I do. What do you think pro-life means, Justin? School Days Party at Sea says, anything the right accuses the left of doing is something the right actually does. That's right. Every accusation is a confession. Let's see here. Retaliate. Yeah, ADD. I don't really know what you're saying over there on Twitch. Yeah, Justin, tell me what you think pro-life means. Let's see here. Carrie B says, Mike Johnson believes Congress needs a raise. Yeah, of course, because he's fucking in Congress, obviously. Let's see here. Darnell Sharp says, what's up, big dog? Nothing much. What's up with you, big dog? Ibrahim Forain says, thoughts on Israel. The current government of Israel, led by Netanyahu, is a fucking travesty. They are bad neighbors to their countries. They are bad allies to America. They are guilty of doing war crimes. They should 100% not be being supported by the American government right now. Just in case anybody out there takes that as inflammatory, I should also put in the caveat that I also do not support Hamas, because they're also guilty of doing war crimes. Cuz says, did you see the Jubilee video of the MAGA guys? They are so ignorant. Yeah, that was fucking torture to watch. Like, I like Mehdi Hassan a lot. I think he's very smart. I think he's on point, politically, policy-wise. But he was just so fighty in that, it was driving me fucking crazy. I'm like, you were such a smart guy, man. Like, you could have done a better job of, like, walking people through the valley of fascism is bad, as opposed to saying you're fascist, you're a bad person. Now, do I think that fascists are bad people? Yeah, kind of, sort of, a little bit. But I don't know how productive it is to just yell at people and go, you're a fascist, you're a fascist. All right. Yeah, Justin, still waiting for you to tell me what pro-life is, Justin. I think you're the same Justin that I was talking to earlier that that said that you didn't like gerrymandering, that it helped both sides equally or some shit, and then I told you that it didn't, and then you were silent after that. Are you that same Justin? You know, feeling a little spicy today. Let's see here. Oh, ADD. So you speak Russian? How interesting. How interesting. Well, how about that? The Russian above says, "Whose is Crimea?" So I'm just answering it. How interesting. How interesting. East meets Westy Bestie says, "This is a terrible situation. Tell me why they're a fascist." Tell me why who's a fascist? East meets Westy Bestie. Alrighty. Let's see here. Cuz808 says, "Do you think both parties have shifted from their original goal?" I'm not really sure. You know, like historically, we're talking about like the original platform of the Republican Party versus the original platform of the Democratic Party. I mean, I think it's probably wildly different than it used to be. You know, just the political ideology surrounding, you know, civil rights is different. You know, the parties have switched ideologies there, where the Democratic Party used to be the party of the KKK, and now the Republican Party is the party of the KKK. So yeah, but I'm not sure if you're speaking more specifically about certain issues or certain time frames there, cuz 808. All right. We are almost at an hour, so let's see here. East meets Westy Bestie says, "No, I agreed with you that he should tell them why they're a fascist person." Oh, yes. Yes, I completely agree with that, Jody. East meets West. I completely agree with that. Joni Calder says, "What can we do about Israel starving the Palestinians?" You know, Joni, there's not a ton we could do, Jody. It's a real fucking bummer because the Israeli government under Netanyahu, and I'm trying to be as specific as I can because this is not the fault of everybody who's living in Israel. It's the fault very specifically of the Israeli government led by Netanyahu and the IDF led by Netanyahu. The same way that everything America does right now is not my fault. It is the fault of the Republican Party and Donald Trump. But they have been just like fucking murdering people. They have been murdering aid workers. You know, they have been murdered. I think they murdered an American citizen who was there at one of the West Bank settlements or some shit like that. I can't remember the specifics there, but it's like Israel has done such an amazing job of shutting off that area to all types of aid resources. It's like it feels impenetrable, you know, and I don't know if there's some specific things that we can do to help that. The answer that I'm going to give is going to be very it's going to be very unsatisfying because it's the same answer that I give for everything, which is just we have to do the work. We have to do the work of electing the types of Democrats, the types of politicians who will use the power that America has to stop Israel from doing fucking war crimes and ethnic cleansing. Like that seems to me like the only solution to what's currently going on now. I don't know if we can, because they're not letting aid in. So like, who do we even give money to? You know, Jody? Yeah. I'm sorry. It's a real fucking bummer, you know? Quia girl. I remember you. Kia, that's how you pronounce it. Kia, yeah. Yeah, but it was Mehdi alone debating 20 disingenuous MAGAites. Again, I love Mehdi. I stan, but I think that we sometimes get stuck in this. I gotta own somebody. I gotta win this debate, and I think that there are more productive ways to handle those conversations, even if you are outnumbered 20-1. You know. Mr. Zantastic says also the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation as well. I think the psychology of being surrounded probably didn't help. Yeah, probably. East meets West Bestie says all the current politicians are on the take from It's Real. That is inaccurate. East meets West. Not every current politician is on the take from Israel. Certain ones are better on this issue than others. And looked at generally, the Democratic Party is better on this issue than the Republican Party. So while I'm sure you can point to a dozen or more specific Democrats or, you know, Democratic leadership and showing them being too soft on Israel, if the Democratic Party was currently in charge, America would be doing more to stop this. Full stop. Oh, right. The Republicans. Yes. East meets West. Yes. Yes, that is accurate. Justin says abortion is pretty simple. The mom can't kill the baby unless the baby is taking her own life. Clockwork Productions, great to see you again. Justin, that's not what you said. You said that I didn't know what pro-life meant. And abortion is not that simple, you know, because You know, not everybody agrees that a baby is a life. Some people believe that a fetus is not a life and is actually part of the mother's body and does not deserve the labor of that mother. You know, and by stamping your feet and demanding that you are right on this and that everybody has to get online, when more than half the country believes that women should have the right to get a free and safe abortion, how do you plan to live with people like me? You know, by force? That sounds kind of fascist to me. How about we work on something where we reduce the number of abortions while making pregnancy safe for women? Like that seems to be a better, more pro-life solution than what the Republican Party is currently doing, you know? Justin says, well, they are wrong. It's a future person. Well, what do you think about all the women that have died because of these abortion bans, Justin? I'm really losing my patience with you, my guy. It's like you're not here listening to me. Alrighty. Kia Girl says, who do you think right now could be a good candidate on the Democratic ticket for 2028? Kia Girl, I always punt on this question because I'm trying to get everybody focused on 2026. So let's not think about 28. Let's not wishcast 28. Let's just get everybody laser focused on winning fucking 26, on unelecting every Republican in 26, because they need to feel electoral consequences for the shit that they've fucking done. And they will not stop. They will not become less extreme. They will not stop fucking hurting us all. Just so that the fucking billionaire class can have more fucking lobster and private mansions and shit like that, unless we take away their political power. That is the only solution that they will believe. The billionaire class is putting so much fucking time, energy, and money into spreading all this propaganda and misinformation because it's fucking working, because it is keeping the Republican Party in power. If we unelect every Republican, then maybe the billionaires won't do that anymore. You know, maybe they will not see the return on investment that they want. Cameron Hodge says, do you believe the Iraq nuclear strikes warrant impeachments? The Iraq nuclear strikes. Do you mean the Iran bombings to hit their nuclear sites? Is that what you meant, Cameron Hodge? Because I'm not really. Oh yeah, okay, you're on board. Let's see here. Oh, Cameron, you have a bunch of really great questions in here. I really want to get to these. All right, so don't leave. Let's see here. Jay says thoughts on Mark Carney. I'm not an expert in Canadian politics. Jago Vargas says, is California redrawing its maps? They will if Texas redraws theirs. Cameron, do I believe the Iran strikes warrant impeachment? An argument could be made, but I believe that the war powers that the president has have been so consistently abused by presidents both on the left and the right that it's kind of a weak argument. I think the better argument is that it was just a dumb thing to do because it did not stop Iran's nuclear program. It only delayed it a little bit, and it was hugely expensive. So what, we're going to just keep on spending billions of dollars every 6 months to maybe put a pause on their nuclear program while also, you know, fueling anti-American rage, which will increase Iran's desire for a nuclear weapon? Because once they get a nuclear weapon, then the bombings just stop. Like, look at fucking North Korea, you know? So, yeah, impeachable, an argument could be made. It seems kind of legally dubious, though, because why didn't we impeach Obama for that? Why didn't we impeach W. Bush for that? You know, et cetera, et cetera. Alrighty, let's see here. Going up. But Cameron, you asked, could you name one critique of the Biden administration or Democrats? I have 1,000 critiques. I think that they should not have continued sending money and weapons to Israel. But, and here's the thing, every critique that I have of the Democrats, the Republicans do the same fucking shit, but worse. And also other really bad things as well. Criticizing the Democrats when Republicans are doing this fucking shit has always felt to me like I own a convenience store and I'm yelling at kids for reading magazines while somebody's actively stabbing me in the throat, you know? Like, I do not mind proving my bona fides by talking about the things that certain Democrats or certain Democratic administrations have done. But the fact of the matter is, like, we got to stay focused on how shitty the Republican Party is. Like, it's not even fucking close, you know? All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Mr. Zantastic says, that's an incredible analogy. Thank you. I've been working on it for a while. Britt CA says, Republicans will redraw maps and Democrats will throw their hands up and give up before they start. That is actively not happening, Britt. And it also has not happened in the past. Democrats have gerrymandered in the past, And Gavin Newsom is saying that he will aggressively gerrymander California in response to Texas gerrymandering. So yeah, I'm not really sure why you would say something like that. That is so wildly inaccurate. Diego Vargas says, will AIPAC ever register as a foreign lobby? Not unless they are forced to. Cameron Hodge says, is there any Republican president in recent time that you would consider wasn't awful? No, there were just like individual things that they did that I would say were not awful. You know, like Reagan advocated for immigrants. George W. Bush told people not to attack Muslims after 9/11. You know, stuff like that. Nixon created the EPA. Britt CA says, the analogy I use is arguing with your roommate for not doing the dishes while the house burns down. Completely agree with that. W. Page, great to see you again. We need to prep talking points. My health insurance is slated to go up 28% this enrollment season. You just fucking named it there, W. Page. You know, all of our healthcare costs are going up. All of our cost of living is going up. The value of the dollar is plummeting. The bond market is plummeting. Our respect on the world stage is plummeting. We're being left out of fucking trade deals. We're being fucking left behind in green energy. All our electricity bills are going up. Unemployment is going up. Inflation is going up. Prices are going up. Like, you know, we just got to fucking do the work, you know? Cameron Hodge says, every single election seems like we just go from a Republican to a Democrat back and forth. Cameron Hodge, I would say that I get why it feels that way, but it's more complicated than that. Because sometimes the Democrats have the presidency, but not Congress. Sometimes they have one house of Congress. Sometimes they have two. Sometimes they have a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. Sometimes they only have a majority in the Senate. Before Obama, the filibuster was used like 1,000% less or something like that. It was Mitch McConnell who turned the filibuster into what it is today as a mechanism by which they can stop the Democrats from doing anything potentially good. So yeah, it's not just that Democrats are in charge and things are this way, and then Republicans are in charge and things are this way. There's give and take. There's the work of the agencies. The Supreme Court has a huge effect on what the government is able to get done. It's much more nuanced than that. Diego Vargas says, how would corporations share their profits when they had some decency left? That's a really good question, Diego Vargas. And honestly, I don't know if I have the gas in the tank for doing that at an hour and 7 minutes in. All right, everybody, I'm going to start wrapping things up. It is time for me to wrap things up because I believe that I am fully out of gas, and we're down to like 68 viewers. Iwan T says, I don't follow politics, left wing, right wing, same bird. Completely disagree with that. Iwan T, please come back tomorrow for the live stream, and I will happily get into more specifics about how the left wing and the right wing are vastly different. The outcomes are different. The politicians are different. The platforms are different. But thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for the gifts, the likes, the shares. I appreciate any support that you can give me and this channel, regardless of if it is the free kind or the paid kind. You can do the paid kind if you want, but you don't have to. I have a Patreon that you can join. I got 4 patrons right now. They're dope as hell. They want you to join them. I got a store that you can buy things on. Both of those things you can find on my website, jarrettberenstein.com/store. And you can send gifts on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube and subscribe, and all that stuff helps me out a ton. My regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. My schedule can also be found on my website. That's my live streaming schedule and also my live stand-up schedule. If there were questions that, hey, I'm a cowboy, if there were any questions that I was not able to get to or that you think of later, don't be shy about reaching out. I have engaged with people in my DMs and through email, and I'm happy to keep doing that with other people because we got to get people doing the work. We got to convince more people to do the work. Please check out my Discord. I have things there that you can do to be part of the solution to help going forward. And I hope that if you're a regular to this live stream, you've at least checked it out and seen what the work is and seen how you can get involved. Because not only do you got to do some of that, you got to convince other people to do that. And if we can get them to do it, and then their friends to do it, and then their friends to do it, then suddenly we are fucking out of this mess, guys. So yeah, just do the work. Just do the work. Anima says, send us to your newest or recent videos directly. I don't know what you mean by that, Anima. Like, do you think that I need to put my new videos somewhere where everybody can see it or some shit? Maybe on my Patreon or something like that? I don't know. Cameron Hodge says, what time tomorrow? Always starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Always, always, always. Unless previously, stated as such. If I ever change up that schedule, I usually let people know either through my website or through my TikTok events or my Twitch schedule, or I'll say it on the day before, like, I'm not gonna be here tomorrow or some shit like that. But yes, Puff says, careful encouraging people to DM you. I've been encouraging them for a while, Puff, and I have regretted it exactly 0 times, even when people are weird. Thank you again, everybody. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. Have an excellent rest of your Tuesday. Have a great week. And I'll see you here tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. 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 Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.